Latin, Old Ancient Greek, Old English, Na'vi. Dothraki has 50 words. I don't really know that. I wouldn't even say I know my own language, Llama, because it's impossible. So I speak English. Yeah. There's a good joke that says a linguist is someone who goes home with a grammar and the next day comes back and says he knows a new language. So if you count it that way, I know everything. Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions, please?
Yeah, well, initially I wanted to kind of ask a really nasty question.
Go ahead, please.
No, I won't.
No, why not?
It's too nasty. It's about Avatar, and I kind of hate the whole kind of ethics behind it.
Me too, man. Right there with you.
So, I mean, I'm not going to go there, but, I mean, I really want to ask you about, this problem of popularization of conlanging as a hobby, because probably, I mean, all of us who've ever kind of dabbled in conlanging know that it's kind of really kind of hard to, get your work out there and get people to see it. I mean, even within the kind of community of conlangers, this is often a problem because, if you come up with, something, really, really profound and really maybe, complex, there might not be very many people who appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering whether, whether you feel that institutions like the LCS, for instance, can maybe help.
They can help.
That,
they can help.
Or do you think that there's some sort of kind of more groundwork required maybe to make this hobby more appreciated and more.
There's a lot more groundwork. I mean, if you talk to any linguist today, 99.9% of them will say conlanging is a waste of time.
Yeah.
To which I would say, well, that's like saying architecture is a waste of time. I mean, you learn about buildings by building one. It's the same sort of thing. You have to know about language in order to make a language. So it does take a lot of effort to tell people conlanging isn't a waste of time because you learn about language, and also that it's fun and it's a hobby. It's not like this is me sitting in my room. It is like whatever. That's the other problem. The other problem is that yes, it's hard to show people that this is your conlang. But LCS helps. They have a blog roll, so you can actually get your blog with other people who are huge names. Like my blog was going right up there with David Pearson's, which is one of the most well known in the world right now, and that's really cool. So yeah, it's possible. But for the most part, if you make a conlang, you will be sitting in your lecture with your notes alone, not listening to the lecture, because that's what conlangers do. They're lonely people, which is why they like cats.
I was wondering if films like Avatar or the languages like Na'vi do have sociolinguistics. Are there different sociolects, or are there only a couple of actors who speak bad Na'vi?
There are bad actors, horrible actors. Sigourney Weaver cannot pronounce Na'vi for the life of her, bless her heart.
So she isn't supposed to be a native speaker. So.
She isn't a native speaker. Neytiri messes up a lot, which is odd, because she shouldn't.
Yeah, but there aren't kind of made up sociolinguistic.
There are made up sociolinguistic stuff. Yeah.
Do they all speak the same variety? That's what I'm wondering.
Yes and no. For Avatar, they all speak the same variety, pretty much, because it was told to make it sort of blank. There are sociolinguistic stuff going on in other things. So Cinder and Quenya are actually used in different sociolinguistic environments, Elvish. And in future movies of Avatar, let's hope there may be different dialects. That's a definite possibility, which would be really cool. And I mean, the good thing about conlangs is that you can make them as complex as you could possibly want to. And you can make them as realistic to language as you want to. It may take 10 years, but it's possible. So yeah, I mean, I wish there were more stuff like that. There's a few things where, like, girls would say hello to my sister more than a guy would say hello to my brother, and that sort of happens. Yeah. Cool. Yep.
Yeah, we were saying before about sometimes you don't know which, because you don't have sort of direct evidence from the language.
Yep.
Do you ever do sort of going to your saying, looking at different groups of speakers and looking at, for example, how children speak in the movie, and then you can sort of infer like chains of grammaticalization and so on?
We do have chains of grammaticalization, which is really cool. So we have this A thing going on, thing going on in not be, where is used next to an adjective to connect to the noun, but it's also used next to a subordinating clause. And so you can see that somewhere that's been grammaticalized, so that's the same thing, but it's always came from the same original proto-stem. And we also have things like final E's are dropped a lot of the time. And in fast speech, A is dropped from genitives. And so yeah, we do have some things we could say in 500 years, this is gonna happen. And that's really, really fun. When I went to California, I had tonsillitis initially. And I took penicillin while I was there, so it's gone mostly. But I was gonna go and devise a whole root language 500 years on because I couldn't use my glottis. I couldn't use my tonsils. And so I couldn't make any adjectives. I couldn't do the glottal stop. I could barely voice. And so I was gonna go there and see if people could understand, the difference between aspirated and non-aspirated stops. Luckily, I didn't have to. But yeah, that sort of thing happens. And that's really cool. Cool. You have a question?
Yep, just wondering, you were saying earlier that there were some examples of Navi vocabulary that were mistaken with Malay, according to Google Translate.
There's one. I think teacher is the same. Karyu or something like that. If you go onto a Navi page, the Google Translate will say, you translate this into Malay every now and then. And there are a few words in Navi which are Malay words as well, just randomly.
Yeah.
They're not the same definition, because that would be incredibly ridiculous.
Yeah. Because Malay itself is an auxiliary language. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's Bahasa Pasar, I believe it's called.
Bahasa Melayu is an amalgamation of Portuguese, Arabic, and Hindi.
Yeah,
So,
that happens.
yeah.
And yeah, so
Cool.
I actually created llama knowing that it was going to mean llama in English. I didn't realize that llama meant speak in Spanish, which is weird because I also decided to make it mean speakers in Llárriésh. And so there's two, they're called false friends, where you have two words which say have a common root, but they obviously don't. And that's really cool. Any other questions?
Can you kind of like go into the thought process of making a language? Like, how do you figure out, okay, this word's going to be delicious with grammar?
Yeah, I was meant to put that in there. I'm sorry, I wrote this on the plane. I'm sorry, jet lag. I apologize. There are like 12 things, or like there's a list of them somewhere of things you need to have in language. So you need to know, do suffixes go before nouns or after nouns? Is it SVO or not? Then you need to know, okay, what's the sound of the language? What's it going to sound like? So you have to figure out the phonology. Okay, well, how are verbs going to be different from adjectives? How's that going to work? Is it going to be any morphology? Is there going to be any marking of subject or object? Is it going to be any derivational morphology? Can I make a word out of another word? So that sort of thing happens. And then you have to decide, okay, well, what's going to mean what? So will hla be a word in my language? And what will it mean? When I made up my own language, I did it off the cusp because I had an ice cream job in the summer, and that really sucked a lot. I got repetitive stress injury from my wrist. And so I used to sit there, instead of serving customers, and be like, I need a word for fish. I need a word for kill. Spang. I need a word for I hate my job. And that happens. And that's really fun. From was very, very slow at making languages, at making words. We only have 1,300. He's had like 4 years. It's kind of very slow. It's all right, though. I know you're going to watch this from. David Peterson is very fast. He's had a year. We have 2,300 words. And there are people who have set up coding programs which will code up every single possible combination of letters, legal letters in the language, in which case you can say very, very quickly, I'm just going to assign all these to that. I haven't done that yet. I was thinking about doing that to a language. That'd be really fun. But yeah, so you have to think about all that. And that's part of the joy of Conlang. You have to decide, well, what means what? Do I like the way this sounds? No. Like Fromer spent a long time for the word for cloud, and finally came up with wop. He probably threw out a lot before that happened. That's really cool. Other questions? Yeah.
If in a future movie they use Navi and it contradicts what we have, what will you do?
What will we do is a good question. That will happen. That definitely will happen. It's going to happen in HBO because all the consonants are dentalized, and so the actors haven't spoken it yet, but they're going to have to do their L's like this. Ooh, ooh. And that's not going to happen to the actors. The actors aren't going to sit there going ooh. We make varying forms of canon like the Avatar Survival Guide, they created words. The guy who made it just sat down like, "Ooh, shit, nah," will now be the word for fire pit, and it was obvious they weren't Navi, and so we had to say this just isn't canonical. This isn't how it happens. That's generally what we do. We're just gonna have to decide, okay, which is more canonical, the movie or Frommer? Right now it's Frommer, and that's always fun, you know, being wrong but right at the same time. Cool. Anyone else?
Well, I wonder, is that possible if you show us the pronunciation or the sounds of the number on your language?
Should I show you the pronunciations?
Yeah. Because your language seems so cool.
Thank you so much. I never expected when I made it to hear anyone say that. There was one guy who asked me for sound clips of the song, which is pretty sweet.
Can we hear the song?
No, you can't hear the song. If you want, if you really want to hear the song, I'll put it on, but I'm leaving the room. So, yeah, here are the sounds, and those are the vowels. And they're all online. Is that what you wanted? Cool. So, like, I actually go through them all and pronounce them all. Yeah, that's using the International Phonetics chart. That's how I did it. So all of phonetics is in this one little document. It's probably the only science ever where everything is in one document. And I just went through and just blanked out stuff I didn't want, which isn't how you're supposed to do it, but whatever. So I initially had some really weird stuff as well, like really weird. Actually, one of them is really weird, the bilabial trill down at the bottom. So that only happens at the start of intonational phrases, because I decided to model it a bit off what I know about Irish, Belfast, English, Irish, and that they do really cool stuff with a phrase, with how they mark phrases, and the sounds change towards the end. It also happens in Swedish. You have this really weird stuff at the end of phrases with tonality going on. That's going to change in a few hundred years. Anyway, and so B happened, where I decided that if you start a phrase with B, it's not going to be a buh sound, it's going to be a blah. And so it's actually blah, blah, which is ridiculous. But I liked it, you know. And so yeah, this is all online. All this stuff's online. Just go to my website, which is llama.conlang.org. Because I'm incredibly creative with my website names. I think I have a picture of that. Yeah, so llama.conlang.org. And that's me. Anyone else? No? Yes?
Yeah, if they were to make an avatar too, and they use all the like known vocabulary structures, would you be able to understand all of it?
Yes. Yes, I would. After days and days and days of looking at it. We were doing that in the beginning, before we had contact with Frommer really going on. So there's this great clip of her on YouTube when she's saying to Jake, "You're never going to be one of the people." And we spent ages analyzing this. So it's and after a long while we realized, okay, that must be the word for part. That must be the word for sly you. You will never. Okay, Calcur must be never. Mouth must be you. And yeah, so that does happen. And that's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Anyone else? Yeah.
Why do you seem to have two names for your language as well?
Oh yeah. You know this, but whatever. Llama is an autonym, so Llama is an exonym, so it's used by other people for the language, because other people can't pronounce the name of the language because they don't know the language. And also because it's incredibly impronounceable because I'm an idiot. So Llama is what we would call it. Llárriésh is what they would call it, people in the actual language itself. So that's called an autonym, so it's what they use, and that's why there's two names.